The next step on our cups, of course, is to put the bottoms on it. And for two of these, this one, the textured one, and this one, it's going to be as simple as just attaching a flat slab on the bottom of it. And when you do this, it's just like when we did it with our boxes. You're going to want to trace around it and then score it and slip it and attach it. You do, however, want to pay particularly close attention to the inside, because this is going to be holding food, liquid, coffee, and things like that. And then you don't want any bacteria to grow in there, or any places for things that would be hard to clean out to grow bacteria. So we really want to get that inside really smooth on these. I'm going to show you how to do that later. But for this one, it narrows a bit, and I could just put a flat bottom on it, but I think it would be really interesting to cut out a bottom that's slightly wider to give it a little foot. And I think that'll be a really good look for this cup. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. So like I was saying earlier, instead of just cutting out a bottom that fits this exactly, I'm going to make one that's slightly larger, and it's going to give it a nice base, or a nice foot, little platform to make the cup really stand out, and I think it's going to look nice. I'm going to use the banding wheel. Go ahead and make myself a perfect circle. So I'm just going to draw a line right here, just slightly wider than the cup. And if it looks too big, I can always make it smaller. So I'm going to take my cup off and go ahead and cut this out. Okay, now it's as simple as just tracing this on the outside and on the inside and attaching it. Now, one thing that's really important is you don't want to have your cup leak. And I can see daylight right through here and on one other spot on this. So before I attach this, I'm going to get my Sureform tool and just make sure that this is completely flat. Okay, now it should sit flat. There we go. I can't see any light through it. I'm going to score up the bottom really good. I want to make sure it's centered on this foot first. I'm going to give it a little twist and a little wiggle to stick it on. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush and really try to smooth out this inside. Again, you don't want any places that food or anything could get caught and grow bacteria. So I'm going to try to get that smoothed out. Use my sponge. Okay, for this one I'm just going to add the bottom, and this one is slightly not round, so I'm going to make myself a little mark here and here so I know which way it goes on. And I'm just going to trace this inside with my needle tool and trace the outside. I'm going to lift this up, score real well. Now here I noticed that there was some parts that didn't get cleaned up earlier, so I'm cleaning them up before I put the bottom on. Once I get the bottom on, it'll be really hard to clean up the inside. Right there. Wiggle and a twist. Last thing I like to do is I like to slightly indent the bottom, and I do this for a couple reasons. Mainly, the number one reason is you want your cup to sit flat on the table. If you have a completely flat bottom, sometimes it'll cup this way a little bit and become convex, and then it'll spin on the table. So what I would like to do is take this part of my hand, and I'm just going to pop it right in the middle once, real lightly, so you don't want to squish your bottom, and that'll indent it. And now I have a concave bottom to mine, and it's going to be really nice and flat when it sits on the table. So I really like the way that looks as well. Looking at this Clarion cup, one more thing I noticed about it is when you flip it over, watch this when I flip this over. So she's indented it right here, and that gave her the opportunity to glaze part of the bottom. And look at how nice that looks on this cup compared to when you flip this cup over here. Same design, but notice she didn't glaze the bottom on this. This one, in my opinion, has much more interest to it. It's much more finished. And so when earlier, when we took our hands and we bumped this bottom in, that's going to give us the opportunity, if we want to put a little glaze here, we can, and really make the interest of the bottom of our cups a lot more interesting. So that's a really great opportunity, and I'm going to take full advantage of that on my cup. Using the Sgraffito tool here to make myself a little line. This is where I'm going to glaze. As I was working on this cup right here, I was looking at some of the cups I own, and I really like these cups I own by the great Iowa potter Clary Ilian. And I really like how she's taken this foot here and added a little bit of interest to it, either by carving it on this one or by making it undulate on this one. It really adds a little extra layer of interest to these cups. So I think I'm going to do the same thing to mine. I'm going to divide this into 4s. I think that'll be interesting, having it divided into 4s for the bottom, and then by 3s for the darting. So I'm just going to make myself some mental marks here. 1, 2, 4, and I'm going to do this undulating pattern that she's done on mine. So I'm just going to take my finger, I'm going to undulate this in between here. I'm going to go up, and then, so there's one. Get my finger wet. Go up in between these 2 marks, up in between these 2 marks, up in between these 2 marks, and then down at the mark. I'll try to hold this so you can see it. Use my fingers to support. I'm going to work on cleaning that up a little bit, but it's hard to do in front of the camera. Cups have all dried to the leather hard state, and I'm going to use my sponge to really get them smoothed up, and then I just can't leave a cup alone. I'm going to do some carving on here afterwards. I'm going to get this nice and cleaned up first.